Picture this. You're standing on a muddy lakeshore in what is now Germany, about 125,000 years ago, and the ground around you is glittering with shattered bone, not a few scraps from dinner. Tens of thousands of fragments, hammerstones, anvils, cut marks, splinters, everywhere, because the people working here are not just eating animals. They are crushing entire skeletons to boil out every last edible drop of fat hidden inside. That is not desperation in the vague movie trailer sense of the word. That is desperation with a system. And once you start looking closely at ancient human life, that system shows up everywhere. In poisoned arrows, in engineered fire, in clothing stitched so tightly it functioned like a portable shelter. In hunts that turned cliffs into killing machines, ancient humans did not survive because the world was generous. They survived because they became frighteningly good at taking a terrible situation and squeezing one more day out of it. That lakeshore site, Neumark Nord, is one of the clearest examples. Archaeologists found evidence that Neanderthals processed at least 172 large animals there, breaking bones so intensively that most of the fragments ended up smaller than your thumb. Why go to all that trouble? Because lean meat alone is a trap. If you live heavily on protein, without enough fat or carbohydrates, your body starts failing anyway. Early foragers learned that lesson the ugly way. So, they went after marrow, brains, and especially bone grease, the calorie-dense fuel locked deep inside skeletons. In other words, they weren't just hunting dinner. They were running an Ice Age fat refinery with rocks. And if that sounds brutal, wait until you move from butchery to the hunt itself. Some ancient peoples solved the problem of bringing down huge animals by weaponizing geography. At buffalo jumps, hunters worked as a coordinated wall of pressure, driving herds toward cliffs at exactly the right moment. Head smashed in buffalo jump in Alberta preserves the results of that strategy across thousands of years. Think about the nerve that took. You are not facing one frightened animal. You are helping steer a thunderstorm made of muscle, horns, and hooves, knowing that a single mistake turns the trap back onto the humans who built it. But if it worked, one burst of chaos could deliver meat, hides, sinew, and bone on a scale no single hunter could ever manage alone. Ancient survival was often less about lone wolf toughness and more about whether dozens of people could keep their timing perfect, while several tons of panic came sprinting toward a cliff edge. Then there's the cold, which may be the most merciless enemy on this list, because cold does not get tired, does not get distracted, and does not negotiate. Ancient humans beat it with engineering disguised as clothing. The earliest eyed needles show up around 40,000 years ago, and they point to garments refined enough for fitted, layered insulation. Not just hide thrown over shoulders, actual sewn pieces that trapped air, blocked wind, and kept skin separated from freezing air. That matters, because loose fur might keep you alive for a while. Tailored layers can keep an entire population moving through brutal environments that would otherwise stop them cold. Somewhere deep in prehistory, somebody sat in miserable weather, threading sinew through bone, and quietly helped invent the difference between exposure and survival. Fire, obviously, belongs on this list, but not in the boring schoolbook way where fire just equals warmth and cooked meat. Ancient humans used it like a technology with multiple settings. Sometimes the real skill was not making a brand new flame from scratch, but refusing to let an existing one die. Keeping embers alive through travel may have been smarter than gambling on ignition all over again. And by around 92,000 years ago, near Lake Malawi, there is evidence that humans were doing something even bigger, changing entire landscapes with repeated burning. Not accidentally brushing a campfire too far into the grass, burning in ways that help turn forest into more open woodland. Researchers still debate exactly why, but hunting advantages are one serious possibility. Which means ancient humans were not always trapped inside nature's rules. Sometimes They edited the map. And then we get to poison, which is where ancient survival starts sounding almost unfair. At Umlatuzana rock shelter in South Africa, researchers found direct chemical evidence that people 60,000 years ago were using plant poison on arrowheads. Not guessed. Not maybe. Direct residue from a toxic plant still known in the region today. Just pause on the logic required for that. Someone had to identify the right plant, understand that its danger could be redirected, process it, apply it, and avoid poisoning themselves in the process. Then that knowledge had to survive long enough to become tradition. A poisoned arrow changes the whole math of a hunt. The wound no longer has to drop the animal instantly. It only has to begin the job. That means less close-range chaos, fewer chances to be gored or trampled, and far better odds that the hunter makes it home alive. And yet, for all this ingenuity, ancient survival never became clean. It stayed brutal, right to the edge. Cut-marked human bones from sites like Gough's Cave in Britain prove that ancient people sometimes treated human bodies the same way they treated animal carcasses, breaking bones for marrow and grease. At Gough's Cave, the best evidence points more toward ritual than starvation, which, honestly, makes it no less unsettling. If anything, it reminds us that ancient humans lived so close to the mechanics of death that even taboos could bend into something practical, symbolic, or both. That's the part I think gets lost when we talk about ancient humans as if they were simply primitive. Primitive compared to what, exactly? A species that could strip calories from shattered bone, stitch insulation out of skin, steer herds off cliffs, carry fire across landscapes, and turn toxic plants into long-range hunting technology is not primitive in any useful sense of the word. It is brutally adaptive. The most brutal ancient human survival method, if we're being honest, wasn't one tool or one trick. It was the mindset underneath all of them. End quote. The refusal to waste anything. The refusal to stop learning. The refusal to die just because the environment seemed to have made a pretty convincing case for it. Faced with cold, hunger, predators, and injury, ancient humans did not become gentler. They became sharper, tougher, more inventive, and occasionally a little terrifying, which is probably why they're still here in the first place.